Vince McMahon reportedly was not backstage at last night's SmackDown taping in Portland, Oregon. However, he did make some minor creative changes remotely. We've got details on that. Plus, Triple H announces the upcoming WWE draft. We may also have details on where and when the draft is set to take place. Drew McIntyre was pulled from SmackDown last night, reportedly due to a health issue. We've got details on that. Plus, is Bayley set to leave WWE after her cryptic tweets? We've got details on what WWE insiders think about the former Women's Champion status. Shinsuke Nakamura is set to return to SmackDown next week. Matt Riddle comes to the aid of Sami Zayn on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar's explanation for why he attacked Cody Rhodes may have been explained last night on the Blue Brand. And WWE moves to dismiss MLW's amended lawsuit. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Let's start off talking about the biggest question going into SmackDown last night. That was the status of Vince McMahon. And he was not present at last night's SmackDown taping in Portland, Oregon. According to a report from Pro Wrestling Insider, or PW Insider, published in their Elite section, McMahon did not make the trip to Portland with the rest of the SmackDown crew, though PW Insider sources say that McMahon reviewed last night's creative plans remotely. While there were minor changes made to the show, there was nothing major, which obviously represents a dramatic change from the massive changes McMahon made to Monday's post-WrestleMania edition of Raw in Los Angeles. PW Insider notes that the backstage morale, which took a huge hit on Monday, was much better without McMahon physically present, though some are waiting to see whether or not this remote approach becomes permanent. There's reportedly optimism that McMahon only took such a heavy hand on Raw because he was there in person. If McMahon continues to exert his influence over WWE creative from a distance, the feeling is that shows will run as it has been leading up to WrestleMania 39, as opposed to the way that they went on Monday night. Some of PW Insider sources also seem to believe that the entire situation will continue to be overblown by internet reaction, suggesting that it's not a big deal. Of course, there was speculation that Vince McMahon was creatively involved in the build-up to WrestleMania, but just from a distance. So some within WWE are suggesting that if that was the case before WrestleMania, as was the case last night, that could be feasible and that could be palatable for a lot of people in WWE going forward. But McMahon indeed was not in Portland, and he was not as heavy-handed with the show as he was on Monday because he was there remotely. However, it does raise the question, if and when McMahon is there physically in person, are we going to see situations like we saw on Raw? And then when he's not there, are we going to see situations like we saw yesterday, and just a massive difference between the two? Now, a bit of an update on what really happened last night. WWE Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque was reportedly the go-to person with regard to creative operations on this week's SmackDown. As I mentioned, Vince McMahon was not present at the tapings in Portland, Oregon, and reviewed creative plans remotely. While there were minor changes made to the script, there was nothing major, which represents a drastic shift from the backstage environment during Monday's post-WrestleMania 39 edition of Raw in Los Angeles, California. In an update from PW Insider Elite, a source at the tapings described whatever changes made to the script as nothing out of the ordinary in comparison to the changes made since Levesque took over creative last year. Typically, rewrites ordered by McMahon are known to wipe out multiple segments and or matches, but there was no sign of that today, the source added. Furthermore, Mike Johnson of PW Insider confirmed that the main event plan for WrestleMania 39 was always locked in for Roman Reigns to defeat Cody Rhodes. Contrary to fan speculation, there were no last-minute changes due to Vince McMahon or anyone else when it regards to the WrestleMania main event. Johnson added that Cody will be pushed going forward as a top-tier talent, and the finish to his match with Reigns was kept a secret due to the absolute bare minimum of those who needed to know. Something, of course, which was actually spoken about by Dave Meltzer as well in this week's edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Now, as I mentioned, Triple H did appear on SmackDown, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But in the promo, he was very uplifting and addressed the future in his address to the WWE Universe in Portland. Now, let's get straight into Triple H's speech, his promo, his oratory exhibition last night on SmackDown, because he announced that the draft was coming soon, which is a stark contrast to what we brought you yesterday, because Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select had tweeted and reported that WWE talent really knew nothing about a draft, and talk about it had kind of subsided. But Then just hours later, it's announced for some point in the near future. Now, following his announcement, and I use that term very loosely, this past Monday on Raw, the WWE Universe was curious as to what Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque would say during Friday night's edition of SmackDown, live from the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon. After touting the success of WrestleMania 39 once more, he shifted gears to a big announcement. Quote, "In just a few short weeks, it's once again time for a WWE draft," Levesque announced. Of course, this comes on the heels of an earlier report on Friday afternoon that indicated a draft anytime soon was far from certain. After all, 2022 was the first year without one since 2015. Triple H promoted the draft as a night that changes the future and the destiny of every WWE superstar in the back, because this time around, every single superstar will be eligible. Obviously, that potentially impacts everybody. However, it could arguably carry more weight for stables such as the Bloodline, the Judgment Day, and tag teams such as American Alpha, Alpha Academy, the Street Profits. Either way, Triple H ended his announcement by promising, with a slight smirk, when all is said and done, this year's draft will truly change the game. So the question is, will WWE make it so the draft actually matters? It was recently reported that over the past year, both USA Network and Fox, which are home to Raw and SmackDown respectively, have been relaxing the split of the brand's rosters, with it declared effectively dead. This led to many stars from each brand jumping shows from week to week, especially in the lead up to WrestleMania 39 last weekend. However, what we could see is a more hard and fast brand split, which is something Triple H has reportedly wanted to implement. So keep an eye on that one, because the draft is indeed coming. Now, you could ask, okay, when is it coming? When's it going to happen? Well, not only do we possibly have a date, but we have a location, and it's an absolutely fascinating one. Popping by the home of none other than their competitors, All Elite Wrestling, WWE will be in Jacksonville, Florida on May 8th. And according to one report, that indeed will be the date of the WWE draft. Per Scoopster account WRKD Wrestling, that will be the date for the upcoming WWE draft announced by Triple H on last night's show. The draft was called the Superstar Shakeup in past years, but the concept remains the same in that stars are rotated between WWE's two flagship brands. So the suggestion is from WRKD Wrestling that the draft will be taking place on May 8th in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a Raw, a SmackDown, or a singular event. I'm not sure, but that is the report, which again is certainly very interesting. Now, we brought you last night that Drew McIntyre would not be on SmackDown. He was pulled from the show, and it led to a lot of discussion. Was this due to his upcoming contract expiring at some point this year? Was it due to creative disputes? What was going on? Well, at WrestleMania 39, Gunther defeated Sheamus and Drew McIntyre to retain the Intercontinental Championship. This hard-hitting bout came off the heels of recent reports on Drew McIntyre's WWE contract set to expire at some point this year. Per F4W Online, McIntyre has been pulled from last night's SmackDown, as well as a meet and greet in Portland due to a health issue. Now, the issue itself has not been revealed, nor has the timetable for his return. The meet and greet with McIntyre saw him replaced by Intercontinental Champion Gunther. Again, we don't really know any finer details on his health issue or anything like that. McIntyre has had quite a lot of illness in recent months, and he's been banged up for quite a while, so it could just be a case of, you know what, I just need some time off to kind of figure things out. So it could be something like that. But of course, if we get any more details, we'll let you know. Now, another person's future who was seemingly up in the air was none other than former women's champion Bayley. Over the past week or so, there's been a lot of fan speculation as it pertains to Bayley's future with WWE. Shortly after Damage Control's loss at WrestleMania 39, Bayley sent out a cryptic message through which she conveyed that sometimes the most romantic love story comes to an end, along with a bye at the end of the tweet. Subsequently, Bayley did not appear alongside her stablemates on Raw, which triggered even more speculation and got fans worried about Bayley's WWE status. Furthermore, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reported that Bayley was supposed to be on the show, but was pulled after changes were made to the script by the returning Vince McMahon. In an update from PW Insider Elite, WWE sources have indicated to Mike Johnson that there, quote, is no expectation of Bayley leaving the company, and all the chatter on social media is merely a case of Bayley building buzz and stirring the pot. Johnson added there are no signs of Bayley being unhappy or that her creative is being dropped. With Becky Lynch and Lita set to defend their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez on Monday's Raw, it remains to be seen if Bayley and the rest of Damage Control influence the outcome of the title bout. Some fans have also speculated that Bayley's tweet is a sign of her leaving Damage Control and reverting to being just a single superstar. So of course, if we get any more details on that, we'll follow up in a future video. There had been a lot of talk about Shinsuke Nakamura imminently returning to WWE TV, and that is indeed the case. Shinsuke Nakamura hasn't appeared on WWE programming since the November 11 episode of SmackDown, when he lost to Santos Escobar in the first round of the SmackDown World Cup tournament. But on Friday night's episode of SmackDown, we learned that he'll be returning to WWE TV next week. However, we do not know yet whether or not he'll be competing when that night arrives. Interestingly, not only has he not appeared on television since November, Nakamura hasn't even worked a live event since January 22nd, where he teamed with Braun Strowman and Madcap Moss to defeat Imperium. Nakamura made his WWE debut as part of NXT back in January 2016 and went on to become a two-time NXT champion before making his main roster debut just over a year later. While he's won his share of championship gold during his 7+ years with the company, including an Intercontinental Championship, a United States Championship twice, as well as the SmackDown Tag Team Championship alongside Cesaro, Nakamura has never won the company's biggest prize. After winning the men's Royal Rumble match in 2018, Nakamura went on to lose to then WWE champion AJ Styles at WrestleMania 34. In fact, arguably his biggest match over the past few years didn't even take place inside of a WWE ring. On January 1st, the main event of pro wrestling known as the New Year 2023 event, Nakamura competed against and defeated the Great Muta in what was one of the last singles matches of the Hall of Famer's career. So Nakamura is indeed going to be back next week. Now, what happened with the Bloodline last night on SmackDown? Well, the answer is quite a lot. In the first segment of the night, Kayla Braxton was backstage interviewing Paul Heyman with Solo Sikoa at his side. After Paul Heyman was asked by Kayla Braxton whether or not he knew why Brock Lesnar did what he did, Heyman responded by saying, quote, "Kayla, why is this night different than all other nights? Because I, Paul Heyman, shall pass over your intrusive and derogatory question and talk about something far more relevant. Your tribal chief, the head of the Bloodline." Jay approached saying he hadn't seen Jimmy and wondered if Paul Heyman or Solo knew where he was. According to Paul Heyman, Jimmy wasn't going to be in attendance because Roman Reigns asked him to stay at home and watch on television. He would be watching Jey Uso solve the Bloodline Sami Zayn problem once and for all on his own. Jey Uso, of course, faced Sami Zayn in the main event of last night's SmackDown, with Heyman noting that main event Jey moniker multiple times in the short chat. After Jey agreed, he left the scene. Heyman had an ominous message for Solo Sikoa, telling Solo either Jey solves the Sami Zayn problem tonight or you'll solve our problems tonight. In a backstage segment, Sami Zayn approached Kevin Owens and shared that he wanted to speak to Jey Uso before their match. While KO thought it was a preposterous idea, Zayn shared he felt a sense of obligation. After being shown looking for him backstage, Sami Zayn finally found Jey Uso shortly before their match, telling Jey that the bloodline is already crumbling and he can't keep beating him if that is what it takes to get it into his head. That's fine, but it isn't how it should be, or it has to be. Then a commotion kicked off with Sami Zayn running around a corner to reveal that Kevin Owens was buried beneath a road case with Solo Sikoa looking on. With Zayn in the back tending to his co-tag team champion Kevin Owens, Jey Uso's music started and their entrances began. In the main event match of the night, Sami Zayn took on Jey Uso, who was initially alone until Solo Sikoa joined him at ringside for the final third. Despite the entertaining match-up with the duo were putting on, it would be a vicious Samoan spike on Zayn from Sikoa on the outside that would prove most powerful, with main event Jey picking up the victory via pinfall shortly thereafter. In the end, Sikoa extended his hand to his brother and then went on to further attack Sami Zayn. When it appeared that Sikoa was going to hit Zayn with another Samoan spike, he was stopped by Jey Uso. In a stunning moment of the crowd getting very excited and then very quickly heartbroken, which is the best professional wrestling moments, let's be honest, Jey Uso instead then instructed Solo to get a chair. Their dastardly plan was broken up, however, by some assistance from a returning Matt Riddle, running out to make the save and kick both Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa from the ring. Of course, that continues Riddle's feud with Sikoa. Of course, he was written off television by the enforcer of the Bloodline late last year. Now, last night on SmackDown as well, we may have finally got an explanation as to why Brock Lesnar actually attacked Cody Rhodes this past Monday night on Raw. Brock Lesnar is often cited as a man who does what he wants when he wants, while on Raw, the Beast Incarnate turned his back on Cody Rhodes, delivering multiple suplexes and F5s to the American Nightmare as Raw went off the air. We may not have a reason as to why from the source himself, but SmackDown commentator Wade Barrett mentioned Friday night that he heard Lesnar was said to have been mad due to the fact that his match against Omos kicked off Sunday's festivities at WrestleMania 39. Whether that is the real reason behind his vicious attack on Monday remains to be seen. Following his heartbreak Sunday night, Rhodes challenged Roman Reigns to a rematch for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship Monday night. When that was shot down, he challenged Reigns and Solo Sikoa to a tag team match, which is when Paul Heyman stepped in. From there, the wise man made it simple. Whoever chose to partner Rhodes needed to have competed at WrestleMania 39, and they'd never get a title shot as long as Reigns holds the gold. Lesnar, of course, was already disqualified from challenging Reigns for his title after losing a last man standing match at SummerSlam last July. With reports circulating this week that Vince McMahon was firmly back in control of creative during Raw, fans were happy to lay the blame for everything that happened Monday night at his feet. However, that wasn't necessarily accurate in this case, because reportedly the Rhodes versus Lesnar feud had been planned out for at least a month, which of course predates McMahon's really heavy-handed involvement in creative. Finally, there's been this ongoing lawsuit, hasn't there, between WWE and MLW. MLW amended it. Well, WWE has now moved to dismiss MLW's amended complaint of an antitrust lawsuit. On March 6, MLW filed a lawsuit against WWE, alleging that WWE has violated Sherman Antitrust Act as the US market for pro wrestling media content, in contrast to their initial suit that focused on the pro wrestling market itself. Per WrestleNomics, WWE moved to dismiss the amended lawsuit to argue that Major League Wrestling still failed to allege antitrust claims for monopolization or attempted monopolization under the conditions defined by the law. In the amended complaint, MLW described a market for pro wrestling media rights that is dominated by WWE because the market leader collects 92% of the revenue related to that market. Again, it's a very, very long and lengthy statement, but obviously WWE, they had argued that if they were to cease operations, other wrestling companies wouldn't necessarily gain all the revenue that WWE once received because they're so big and all this kind of stuff. MLW filed their original lawsuit in January 2022, alleging that WWE attempted to undermine the competition by inhibiting MLW in its pursuit of media distribution deals. MLW also accused WWE of trying to hire contracted talent away from the company before it was ultimately dismissed. So WWE have looked to dismiss the latest MLW lawsuit. Of course, if we get any updates as to what happens when it comes to this, we'll let you know. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.